Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on our coffee chat. Today we have William Dowling, he goes by Bill. We're really pleased to have him join us. He is our fairly new Executive Director of the Olympic Workforce Development Council. And so for those of you that aren't familiar with what that is, it is a 3-county council that does a lot of work on workforce training. And so Bill will be able to share with us that element. He has a really impressive background, and I want to make sure you share that information with everyone as well, Bill. I see Susie Ames, the president of Peninsula College, just joined us. So that's great. Welcome, Dr. Ames. And I see Brian's on as well, Needle from Peninsula College. So anyway, just a few quick items regarding just ensuring that we don't pick up any background noise. And that is, if you'll put yourself on mute, and if you have a question, either raise your hand or you can put your question in the chat and one of us will call on you. So with that, Bill, I'll let you take it away and you can share your screen when ready.
Okay. Let me and we can start the show. Let's see here. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Colleen, Lori, and all the Clallam team really for making this possible today. I am excited to join you. I'm Bill Dowling, and as Colleen said, I get to be the director of the Olympic Workforce Development Council. And so I've been here about just a little bit of brief before I actually started officially in December, I guess, officially. Took me a while to get settled and kind of making my way around, but I'm excited to be part and really have gotten out, begin to get out and meet many of you perhaps. And the opportunity, I notice, of course, I'll be meeting some of you. Actually, I have some appointments with someone in the next couple of weeks, so it's exciting as well to get to meet you in person after this. I came to Washington. Really, I was looking for an opportunity to move to an area that I've always wanted to live in. My sister lives in Olympia, and she's 12 years older, and I decided during the pandemic that it was really important to be closer to family. So it was a big part of my decision was moving there, and so I've gotten that opportunity as well, but really fell in love with the community all around. Our 3-county region is probably one of the most beautiful areas in the country, and frankly, if you're lucky enough to live here, you might just be lucky enough. But I think we need to also focus on skills. So my background I was coming here as the State Director of Employment and Training in Colorado. A little bit larger job, oversaw all of the workforce areas, but it's very much a county system like we are here actually in Clallam, Jefferson, and Kitsap. Our region is a county-driven system, and so that's very similar to how we had in Colorado operations. They were all governmental agencies that actually done, rather than the 501(c)(3) board, which most of our local areas are. There's only 2 of us that are county operated here. So I just want to start with a bit of a brief overview, and I'm happy to entertain questions at the end of the presentation. The overview is kind of just a little bit about what makes up the workforce system, so we understand it. So we're a federal program that operates under the Workforce Investment and Opportunity Act, the WIOA, as many of you might have heard that thing. I hate using all those acronyms all the time, but we easily fall into that. So the Department of Labor funds the state workforce agencies. In our case, the federal recipient of that is the Employment Security Department. And then they fund local workforce areas, which are developed and set aside through the system. They're designed to be not only recipients, but to be these local areas that kind of conglomerate together as designated by the governor in an original plan. And then finally, we farm out those dollars or RFP out those dollars to local service providers. In our case, in our region, that's the Employment Security Department and the Olympic school district system, the OESD system. And so we'll talk a little bit about that as we move through. We also have a new partner within our system as our one-stop operator kind of coordinate, and that's Career Path Services. That was just announced about a week ago. So we're excited about that new opportunity. So here, what does the Olympic Workforce Development Council do and what's its purpose? So the OWDC serves, as I say here, Clallam, Jefferson, and Kitsap counties. It directs federal, state, and local funding to workforce development programs. And working with our contractors and partners, the OWDC examines the needs of our regional economy, looking at labor market data, working with our economic development partners throughout the region to determine what are the trends that we need to be monitoring so the workforce can match those economic trends, and then sometimes help prepare those economic trends for opportunity. We oversee and certify one-stop career centers where job seekers get employment information, find out about career development opportunities, training opportunities, working with our community colleges and other universities in the area and other training providers as well to develop these programs to be able to ensure that people can transition from poverty, no job, new career, to new and good opportunities. The one-stop career centers also provide many no-cost services to employers. Services vary by WIB, depending, or Workforce Investment Board, or area in this case. Now, the board itself is made up of a variety of different groups. More than 50% of the OWDC's board must come from business to community. These are appointed by your local county commissioners, each to each region. They're recommended by business service organizations, offered by the economic development groups or others, and then they're appointed by the commissioners themselves. We have representation from local community colleges, training providers, as well as elected officials and workforce program leaders. Union participation is also mandated. Labor has a seat at the table, 3 seats at the table, actually. This ensures that we really are getting to the current skill needs of local businesses as they're communicated to our relevant training providers. So this just gives I like this little I don't know, infographic, as it were. Talks a little bit about the 4 areas that workforce boards really try and focus on. One, we're strategic. We're strategists, excuse me. We understand trends and we set the collective vision. We manage these systems. We design and manage our customer-centered service delivery system to make sure the customer is at the focus of all we do. We optimize, so we're an optimizer. We use data to drive our decisions, and we're always looking on that continuous quality improvement loop. I originally was trained in Baldrige many, many years ago, and have always found that if we can use our public workforce system to really focus on continuous improvement, we really can be better in everything we do. And then finally, we bring partners together and we align services as an important convener in the area. Now, we receive funding in buckets, and this is very sometimes kind of confusing. The buckets don't only tell us where we can spend the money and in what group of individuals, they're also focused on particular populations. So in this case, we receive 3 streams of funding for the most part. Adults, those are low-income individuals over the age of 18 who need assistance to be able to achieve full employment in a self-sustaining wage. So in other words, we're looking for that. There are multiple barriers that we can use. We've been out of the workforce for a while. You're making a low income. There's a variety of different types that we use to go through each of these, but just to know that that's what it's normally designated as, adult services. The largest portion of our funding usually comes in that way. Dislocated workers are individuals who are laid off due to no fault of their own. So someone who has quit their job or something does not qualify under, usually qualify under a dislocated worker, but these are really to get folks back to work, kind of folks we think about normally who are on unemployment insurance. And that's a large group of our individuals because they're required to participate in many ways with our programs to get re-engaged in the workforce. And then finally, youth population, what I consider to be probably one of the most important populations. These are divided into 2 categories: in school kids who are still young people who are still in high school or other, well, they have to be at least in high school or other school. And then there's out of school, those disengaged youth, what we usually refer to as opportunity youth. And that's the largest group that the vast majority of our funding needs to go to serve that population. And because dollars are limited, it kind of means that group seems to be the only group. Now, these are 16 to 24, really focusing on, again, those young people who are disengaged, and the opportunity is to get them back to finish if they haven't finished, to complete school either with a GED or some other program, or then to obviously move them on to post-secondary education in some way. And when I say post-secondary education, I mean any type of a training program which is after their secondary education. So not always what we describe as traditional college, but other forms like apprenticeship, or other work-based learning opportunities, which are so important to engage folks in. Finally, these other funding grants, rapid response, where we go in and help businesses when they have a layoff or a downturn, including programs like shared work and a variety of others. We have a national dislocated worker grant as well, focused on COVID that we've been having for the last couple of years. We have statewide activities, including the Economic Security for All federally funded program and the state funded program. And finally, other competitive grants and philanthropic awards, which we seek as well, or help other organizations to partner with other organizations so that they might be successful at those grants as well, as we're often listed as a required partner. This is our current funding. We are a small area in the state. We're not the lowest funded area, but we're pretty close to it. Currently, the program funding year, as you see, is divided into these books. And Youth B actually it came out this year as our larger. That ACP is our funds for administrative overhead and such that is used throughout the region, and mostly placed for the OWDC staffing, but other activities, rent, various things like that in different areas. And then this is the portion that's allocated toward Clallam County. I know Colleen was very interested in this one, and you all to see. You can see it's not a great percentage. It's divided and based upon formula by the federal government, and it's not something we can really change or move around because of that designation. But I'll talk a little bit later about other opportunities we might have to increase that and not focus on just the federal formula, but other dollars which might allow us to really serve in a better way, in a way where that's more based upon need and opportunity, I think. So one of the most important ways I talked about is our working with schools, and we use OESD, School District number 114, to oversee our programs, our youth programs. They're our youth contractor, and they work with all of the school districts in our area, obviously some more than others, depending on how engaged they are in opportunities. But part of the work we're doing is working with funding our youth pathways provider, OESD, to support Career Connect Washington, an important program here, educating our young people and adults, and promote successful development and expansion of CTE graduation pathways for schools throughout the region, but most importantly here in Clallam County as well. So we collaborate with schools to kind of raise awareness on the pathways that young people have available to them, to tell the real story of what education is needed to be able to achieve what they're looking for. A lot of young people, of course, focus on the fact that we could be, great video game developers, right? And that's just not a realistic expectation for everyone in the area. And so part of the program is really to work with young people to look at careers that they may not have ever considered, and to really look at those opportunities and see what high wage and opportunities are available to them. And so that's a big part of the counseling that our folks do in conjunction with the schools. So goal by September of 2022 was that every district and tribal compact school will have at least one CET graduation pathway. It's a big part of what they've worked on. Successful outcomes for us look like developed career launch program within the fishing industry in the local area at Nia Bay, working with that industry really and with family to receive 6 industry recognized credentials that we've developed. And so that's been a really big part of what we've been working on, I think, in the area that's been successful, but we want to build on those successes in other industries as well. They have a twofold mission here, really to provide youth in our communities with the opportunity to gain the necessary skills to build their futures through education, job training, and career development, and then to provide committed, responsible, and productive workers to our employers. It's a twofold system always. I like to say, if business isn't hiring, there's really not much workforce can do about it. The only thing we can do about it is to help the business to be able to be in a place where they can hire and expand. Hence our partnership with you all in economic development and others. These are just a little bit of the stuff that we're doing in Clallam with the 5 school districts. They benefit from these variety of civic services. They also benefit from paid internships with local businesses. The typical internship lasts a total of approximately 180 hours usually. We can extend those sometimes. They range from 20 to 40 hours a week, and it lasts for several months. The host business, and maybe many of you might have either been a host business or might desire to be one, and that's important for us too. The host side provides that mentoring component, which really a business leader can provide, that one-on-one mentoring just by being there, seeing the power of work, seeing how it transformed their lives. And that's a big part of this experience for youth, but also direct supervision through case managers as well in our system to be able to help and deal with issues. They're always available to support and really provide a meaningful experience. You leaders of business really do such a great favor by participating in these programs, in inspiring young people really to understand what opportunities await them. A lot of our folks have never had the opportunity to work before. And we see less and less work participation with young people because of all the demands of school and education, getting into that college they want to. They don't have those opportunities to really find out. And so they can easily drop away and fall out of the system if not engaged. And a big part of that really is engaging through opportunities to work. So just again, a little bit more, these are some of our partners that we work with. I just want to say a huge thank you to these organizations that work with us. If you know of them, certainly support them, obviously, in your community. But I think it's also really important as we develop more and more of these opportunities for young people to work, that we also talk about the positive experiences of businesses by having young people working there and engaging their workforce as well in a future. One of the things that we do in the board is a lot of our work is driven by the in-demand industry clusters. And I just wanted to provide you a little bit of the data that I put on here that comes from ESD, our labor market information group that work with BLS data, and kind of look at, these are just shows the various job openings that we have. We know that healthcare, retail, customer service, all of these things, and obviously hospitality place big lines, but many of these jobs that are smaller, farther down, or perhaps not even listed here, are actually in demand as well. And so we work to modify this list based upon information, and we submit to the state through an opportunity process where we can change some of those numbers, or change some of those designations to include additional industries if we can show that that hiring is in fact happening. Part of the problem is we're not allowed to look at future data. So if we say, well, we've got this company coming, we can't list that as an in demand specifically because they're coming, but we want to figure out ways to do that. I know Colleen has some exciting opportunities for possible future legislation around that to give us a little bit more freedom as local areas to be able to designate that. And we all are about local control. We really feel very strongly that local folks should decide their future, their opportunities, and be able to work to develop that. And we're looking at, from the state, really focusing on the local rather than statewide, because all of our economies are so different in each area of the state. We have some things in common, but we also have a lot of opportunities that are very different and separate based upon our regional economies and what works for us.
Bill?
Yes, please.
So since Clallam and Jefferson counties only represent 12% of the total, the way that the ESD determines if an occupation is in demand or not, we have found that it really reflects Kitsap County and not Clallam and Jefferson. So I know that updating this monthly doesn't really offer equity in our rural communities or our counties. So what is the bottom up method that we can help determine what occupations are in demand in multi-county workforce development councils? Is that something that you think workforce development boards could support?
I think so, but they actually are calculated separately. They're actually not calculated in one local area. We look at that as the large form, but when determining training opportunities through those dollars, we actually can buzz down into each county separately. Part of the reason it's difficult, Lori, as you know, is the way the data is collected, and that it's not always the most accurate in demand. But that's why we can supplement that data to the state and be able to make those changes to ensure that we're getting training opportunities in the realness of our counties, right? And really hearing what those are. And so there's opportunity to feedback. Now, does it work every time? No. But I'm confident that if we really use the opportunity that we have to give data feedback, we can drive those decisions a little better. And I have some more stuff as we go through a little bit different opportunities, I think, to be able to do that as well.
Okay, Bill, since we make this kind of an interactive forum, I just
Mhm.
want to, I see a couple questions in the chat. Let's just get to a couple of those.
Sure, I love it.
David, do you want to go ahead and ask your question? If not, I'll go ahead. David says, I see numerous help wanted signs, but also see people on street corners asking for handouts. Should we refer them to your organization?
You certainly should refer them to WorkSource, which is our contractor. We contract, so this is under the WorkSource side, and perhaps you're familiar with WorkSource SQUIM. We do have Workforce Clallam that's located in SQUIM, and that's a great place to start, either by phone or others. We have specific programs that target homeless individuals as well, and can provide wraparound services to help to get them off. But I'm going to say that just a feeling that not everybody that holds a sign is in reality looking for work. So we just need to be, realistic about what people are able to do, what they aren't. But we want to find them help regardless, because we obviously want to focus on that. But we are going to work with those who are actively interested in going to work. Who are the case managers? I see that, Lori, if I go ahead and read through this. Case managers are actually on the company that are providing the services. So it could either be the OESD folks for our youth case managers, or the Employment Security Department who is contracted for our adult and dislocated worker services in Clallam and Jefferson counties. So they provide those services, and their counselors are the ones located at the WorkSource Center. They also go out into the field in various areas. We're trying to get that back. We used to have more opportunities in other parts of the county to be able to see folks. And we're working with the library systems now to try and develop some of those opportunities. But we're all still just, sort of reopening slowly, and public buildings are a variety. And we also have to make sure that we continue to focus on, how to get to people. But it is taking longer with the various reopenings since the pandemic. You see,
Bill, hi, good morning. This is Kay. So I'm the one who asked the case manager questions. Mm-hmm. So I'm familiar with the WorkSource building and some of the folks there, but is the security agency, are those people also part of that group?
They're employees of this Employment Security Department.
And where are they?
At the WorkSource Center.
Oh, they are. Okay.
Yeah, they're the ones that operate the WorkSource Center for the board. On behalf of the board. The board has an office there, but it's other partners as well, like Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, employment programs for veterans. But many of those programs at the WorkSource, at least these WIOA, or Workforce Investment and Opportunity Act programs, are operated by the Employment Security Department here. They're our contractor. Will that continue to be so? We go out for bid every 4 years. It's really interesting. We just had the one-stop operator, which was ESD, and now is going over to a nonprofit organization, Career Path Services. So, we don't know in the future. Everything goes up every few years for new bidders for those services. So it's possible, that those services could move. But currently those are operated by the Employment Security Department, and they do a good job. Frankly, there are members of our community, and so they're employed by them. So this last question on the 4 jobs on higher living wage. Yeah, we should focus on better living wage. This is just simply a number about the jobs themselves. And by the way, we actually have to have a living wage opportunity for many of our programs for us to train folks anyway. But these jobs don't require much training. These jobs are jobs that folks often fill as a first job, a cashier, or opportunity like that. What we want to do is work with incumbent worker programs to be able to lift those folks, use those skills that they gain on those entry-level jobs, and move them into higher wage industry. There's going to be more churn in a low wage job that requires very little training. And I agree with you. That's not what we're focused on. In fact, we want to move folks from those jobs to higher wage. This is just telling us what are the reality of the open jobs in demand in our area. And oftentimes the in-demand jobs are, in fact, the lower wage jobs. It's just kind of how that goes. So I want to take off the chat. Just a little opportunity to share with you a little bit. I thought I'd share a success story. We have We have lots of them, but one in particular that the team pointed out for me that I wanted to share. We had a young man named Evan come into the WorkSource Center looking for assistance to get into employment using his welding training. He had actually already gotten welding training, and he had completed high school with a welding certification, but was not working in that field. In fact, he was working at a grocery store, a local grocery store chain, and he needed help to make that change to his actual career field. And he's worried that some employers might not accommodate his delay in processing issue that he had. And so he did have a disability, not certainly banning and nothing to do with keeping him from being able to do that job. But after enrollment in our Economic Security for All program, his navigator was able to help Evan review and market his skills and abilities, updating his resume. Sometimes it's just very little things like that, and really working on his skills to focus on what he offered to the business, what the success that he wanted to bring to the business by showing his work ethic and his values that he'd done. They also worked with him on his financial goals because he had a lot of financial issues and problems. He'd accumulated some debt, a variety of things, but he lived at home and he wanted to live on his own in the future. And so after several mock interviews, one of that, a lot of businesses volunteer with our WorkSource Center as well to help with mock interviewing sessions, job search. He was able to interview with a local furniture business and was hired in that welding capacity. And is excited to be working for a company that will allow him to, for his desire to weld, to work with his hands, really be able to create things. And now his wage is starting at about $17 an hour, which is certainly better. With an annual income of $35,000, he's able to move into that. And of course, with some upgrading skills, continue to grow. We're really happy that he's been able to have that kind of opportunity. So this is kind of an example of the kind of work that we do with somebody who's already in one of those low wage jobs and how we move them up in the career ladder to really develop and focus the skills that he worked to develop on a little bit more about that. So I want to talk just lastly on this part is kind of a little bit about what we were referring to as the Workforce Impact Fund, but I'll answer this question, see. Just putting in, thank you, Laurie. Appreciate you putting in the address, actually. Right now, local workforce areas throughout the state have been impacted pretty severely by budget cuts. So our cuts to our local area have been about 20% over the past few years, actually 3.5, 4 years. A lot of this is due to not only declining resources, but really the way in which these dollars are calculated, Terry. And we talked a little bit about this, how Clallam and Jefferson are just getting that 12%, right? 12% of the population. But how can we work to increase that? One of the things that we're seeking as local workforce areas is really advocating for a workforce impact fund, which what we're asking for is a $50 million of state funds on a biannual appropriation to be able to stem out and even out that workforce funding to our local areas. This would about bring $2.5 million to our region, which really would the target of that is really to work more with businesses, to develop opportunities for more work-based learning opportunities in our local communities, especially targeted towards small businesses who are having difficulty finding workers to want to take on those jobs in the industries. And so by using work-based learning tools like apprenticeship, obviously that's the queen of all the work-based learning, but there's others like internships, like on-the-job training, like paid internships, a variety of forms that we can put in to be able to get those industry recognized credentials and have people really develop into the industry. And so this is going to allow us a lot more flexibility. There's going to be more coming on this. We're working out now with the State Workforce Board around kind of signing on to this. We've gotten really good support from business, AWB members and others who have been excited about really putting some focus on these business opportunities that we have to grow. All of our dollars are really focused and moved toward individuals. And so we need that flexibility to be able to serve businesses better, to be able to tie those not necessarily just to a group of low income or barriered populations, but at the same time also work with those folks to be able to get them ready for the skills the business needs. We know we can do that, but it's going to take more resources and more individuals to navigate folks through that system. In addition, we find that a lot of people lose their job through to no fault of their own or other things because of things that happen in their life. You probably experienced it, especially with entry-level workers. They don't have the ability to deal with an emergency that comes, a financial emergency where it might be $500 to fix a car, $250 for this, or $600 for this. we want to be able to have that kind of opportunity to follow people for that first year of employment and making sure we're keeping them on the job by using those kind of incentives and opportunities when folks really need it to do it. So many folks lose benefits for the public system. They've been on the public benefit system and they lose those immediately. We want to create transition opportunities until that wage is high enough so they're okay on their own, or what helps to move folks through the benefit cliff. All of these are opportunities that we feel we can have in this workforce impact fund that we're going to be moving for. This just gives you a little bit of I like to call it a little infographic about why it's important. It's put together by our partners. We're a member of the Washington Workforce Association that really talks about what boards do. You know, we manage funds, we industry and community engagement, we're regional coordination, we procure providers. We make sure that we meet compliance. Our agent is, we said a clean monitoring review, really important to do to make sure that we're monitoring and watching those dollars to make sure they're really going to change people's lives and not just for systems or buying things or things like that, really for focusing on individuals. We make sure that that we're getting our benefit as well. Workforce really returns a lot more investment, definitely over the, I think it's about 3.7 to 1 investment on what we make back with tax revenue of putting this in. So because we're investing in people, not in programs, and that's a big part. Lori, should I take a look at the question here? Oh.
Yes, Bill, it's from me. Go ahead. There's a couple in there now.
Okay. Did you mention the source of the WIOA funds? Yes, there are federal funds through the Workforce Investment and Opportunity Act. Some of those funds are state funds as well. As I said, they come through ESD to us, the federal funds, but we also have state funds like the Economic Security for All package to be able to develop those. And then some of our emergency grants are also from the federal level, again, administered through the state. Any other funds that were directed? Not really, except for those smaller grants that we work together in partnership with, and they're very restrictive about who we can work with. For instance, the COVID grants that we had, folks had to be adversely affected by COVID. They had to lose their job due to COVID, or a business had to close due to COVID. And so we had some of those. We had other grants that were specific to working with the food pantries in the area, our local food shelters. We have folks at the food banks that are assisting there, and those are for temporary jobs and employment training opportunities for folks to get them back working temporarily. For anyone on unemployment insurance who's interested in self-employment, the Self-Employment Assistance Program, yes, a great program, not administered by the board, but certainly supported, and we make a lot of referrals to those programs as well. It's a great opportunity, really, for folks to look at, is this time for me to be able to start a job, and what can I do? And working with this program, our SBDCs and others, we have programs available to help them be able to understand what's realistic for them in those programs. So yes, 100%. And where can we review the investment data? Our data is posted on the OWDC website. I'd be happy to make a link to that later available to you. But yeah, we have our performance data on there, if I'm assuming what you're referring to as investment data. Otherwise, maybe I'm not understanding the question. And this is other questions you might have for us. I'm just going to put these are some of our partners that we work with throughout the region. We're excited about being with them. Some of them are actually paid partners like KCR and Kitsap or ESD in our areas, and others are partners who actually benefit from our funds like our colleges and other groups.
Colleen,
So I'd be
has a
happy
question.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm trying to switch devices here. So let's see if this is going to work. So you mentioned that organization that is taking over from ESD to provide WorkSource
No,
benefits.
sorry.
No, okay, yeah. Please explain that a little more.
Sure, Colleen. Oh, so one of our functions of the board is to coordinate the one-stop system. The one-stop system is WorkSource, the WorkSource system, as we call it here in Washington. So one-stops are a conglomeration of partners that operate a workforce center. The lead in our centers has been ESD as our WIOA provider. but we have now actually have a new one-stop operator that we've contracted with. It's a contract specifically around being the coordinator and community builder in the system. And so that is the new system that's going to be or the new position that is now moved from ESD to our new provider, Career Path Services. They'll be beginning in October. They've been awarded the contract and are developing their staffing patterns and all of that right now and working with us to design the services they'll be offering. But that's a coordination role, not the one that actually pays for the training or things like that. That's still at the current with our current workforce provider or adult dislocated worker provider, which is ESD. That will go up for bid in a couple years. I think I'd have to look at the date, but I think it's in 2024 that we go out for bid again for those systems. And ESD has done a great job. But in the past, they were the only bidder. But now in this last competition, just simply for this one-stop operator, we had three good firms that were interested in providing those services. So it's great to see that others are interested in our systems and want to benefit, want to play a part in that. So we're always hoping for local providers. We did used to actually be with OWD, but they discontinued the contract. They could not find the staffing to be able to provide the services. And so that was part of the reason. When we go back out again, we're hoping with this WIF, if these WIF monies come through, this Workforce Impact Fund, that we'd be able to work more with local community providers in the area to give them enough resources to be successful.
Gotcha. So Bill, you mentioned that organization. Are they providing the services to the connection services to people in Clallam County as well?
They will be, yes. They're responsible for the entire region.
Okay, and where are they out of?
I think they're out of Spokane, actually. I think this is the first time they've come in. They were a provider in Pack Mountain, but I'm not sure if they're continuing there or not. So they were the bidder. And really, it's one individual that will travel around to be in all parts of our region regularly. So we're not going to house them in a particular area. Their job is to actually be moving from our workforce areas, one to the workforce portions of our area from one to another, to be there on the ground, really where they need to be.
So if I can do a follow-up, I don't know if there's a bunch of questions in the chat. I'm here on my phone now. So going back to the occupation in demand list, the Peninsula College directed me to the methodology that they use to determine Clallam counties, Jefferson counties, Kitsap counties, numbers regarding every occupation, whether it's in demand, balanced, or in decline. And what that showed was that it had to be either in demand, the occupation had to be in demand in the state, or in demand overall in the workforce development area. And that methodology is a problem for us because we're very different from Kitsap County. We don't have the Navy. We don't have large union employers. We don't, by and large, we don't have, we're not a bedroom community of Seattle that now Kitsap County is becoming more of with the fast ferry. And so we are very different, and our occupations that are in demand here are very different. And like bookkeeper is an example. We have a massive need for bookkeepers, and that's not showing as in demand. So I'm just, instead of having to go through your organization on an annual basis to get it modified and prove the case on an annual basis, I would much prefer that it's a bottom-up type response where we share with OWDC what is in demand, rather than ESD, which I know working with them in the past and trying to get nursing as an example. They were showing nursing for years was in decline. And I knew that OMC had 97 openings. And this is well before your, and the reason was because the process that ESD uses, and they readily admit it's a flawed system, that they hire a third party to go on to aggregate websites that collect information about occupations that, or jobs that are open. So Indeed.com or Indeed.com or say WorkSource.com.
Mhm.
But so many of our businesses, especially in the construction field, don't put their needs into those sources, and they don't advertise an electrician or a plumber or a painter on Indeed.com or WorkSource. They might put it on their own website, or it's word of mouth. So that's not getting picked up by ESD and in the occupation and demand list. And for us to have to modify that list so that there can be training in that space where it is needed locally, we have to do our own surveys, and we have to do that annually. And that's where, Lori was talking about a lack of equity, that it's not a good system. And I would really like to see, and this is that bill that Representative Chapman is talking about running as the chair of the Rural Development Committee, that to, instead of funding ESD to hire this third-party administrator counting job openings, rather have ADOs or some organization in each county work with, ADO is an EDC, like our organization, work with the OWDC to assess what really is in demand in our own counties. I mean, that may work fine for King County and Pierce County and the larger counties, but certainly for Jefferson and Clallam and some of the smaller populated counties, it doesn't work well.
I 100% agree, Colleen. I do think that the system is not in line with where we want to be. And in fact, we have to use way too much time duplicating efforts, wasting money, and really going around to try and figure out how to make it work for us. And so I 100% agree. That's part of the way, I've dealt with this before. Rural gets the short end of the stick so oftentimes. In Colorado, part of my duties was to manage the rural consortium, 51 of Colorado's 64 counties. And so, we were always focused on trying to figure out what would be best, to demand, to look at demand industries. But you're right, you run against this system itself. Now, how much of that will we have power over even with this bill? I don't know with the federal law, how that will mesh for that. So I do think we need to do some serious research around that. And maybe ask ESD for actually help, because I think they're not happy with the system either. As you point out, they readily admit it's not working for where it needs to be for our communities. So I agree. Anxious to work together on that.
Yeah, that'd be great. However it works, we just want a system that is really reflective of the needs of the counties. And, the saying we've heard so often is that the biggest export of Clallam County is our kids. And when I saw what the methodology is of the state to determine if they will fund training programs for a particular occupation, when I realized that if it's in demand in the state, they'll fund it, or if it's in demand in, 88% of our workforce development area is Kitsap County. If it's in demand in Kitsap County, yeah, they'll fund it. But if it's in demand in Clallam County, it won't necessarily be funded. And so that's, I think, a systemic issue that if we can fix that, we can really start to improve things in our rural communities. Anyway, off my soapbox. Sorry about that.
Good box to be on. I see you have a question from Roy Morris.
Yes, I agree with Colleen. One of our biggest exports on the peninsula are our young people. I retired as principal of Clallam Bay School, and then I worked for development in Bellingham with a $5 million grant that reduced the unemployment by over half in the first 2 years when they unemployed all the Intauco and Georgia Pacific people. But when I got down to the bottom of the workforce that hadn't had a lot of experience and started working with WorkSource and other entities, I learned a lot about the different demographics and the different training needs. And out here on the West End, we're trying to produce a natural resources jobs collaborative among ourselves, just people that would network and share jobs, and also offer young workers work experience, everything from managing native plants nurseries to a workforce response team that goes to senior citizen houses and cleans up the area just so they get the habits of show up on time, meet the expectations of the job and such. So it'd be helpful for me if any of your attendees, Colleen, could develop some kind of index that we could look at and network among each other, so I could see people of like interest or they have connections that could benefit us in a way that, I could have a little group of 3 to 5 of us talk about one thing, or 4 or 5 of us talk about another. I'm meeting with Rebecca Schwartz at Peninsula College, and I'm looking forward to meeting with the new president at Peninsula to talk about what we can do most specifically on the West End. So anyone that wants to get a hold of me, are our emails in this list, Colleen, for others to network and contact us?
If why don't we ask people to put their emails into the chat at this point, and then we can get, if they're interested in coordinating with you or others, and then you can pull that from there.
Thank you very much, Colleen. Thank you. And I sure do appreciate the eclectic array of interested participants in this work. You do a nice job of having speakers and participants.
Well, thank you. Thanks.
Great. I see the question from Manning Webb at the Labor Union. Yes, we actually, how do we communicate directly? I don't know about directly with everyone, but we do have labor representation, 3 members on our board, which are supposed to play that role of letting us know about that data, kind of what the demand right now that labor's seeing. We receive a regular update from those folks and work together in partnership. Can it be improved? I think it can really be improved. I think over the years, we haven't had as much connection, perhaps because in the peninsula, frankly, we don't have as active as a labor presence. I know this just personally trying to get part of my family involved. We have a member of the family that's a member of the union. And so it's important to, find how we make those connections. And I think it's difficult to do sometimes for folks. They don't automatically think of union opportunities. Also really helping young people to understand what a union means for them. And not just going after the immediate wage that they might get to be hired out of one while they're in a training program. Persistence has been a real problem in some of our training programs, to be honest, and that's why we're looking at trying to place some dollars. One of the policies we just working on here is what's called needs-related payments, and I just asked our staff to put that into place. And what that will be with our contractors, when someone's engaged in training, we can actually pay them to be persistent in that training, to take care of their bills, not just help them out with an emergency expense, but really to sit down and budget at the beginning and help them understand, here's what you're going to need to make it through this program. We're committed to helping you with the resources to make it through. You need to be committed to finishing the program. Because that's what we're seeing is so oftentimes in some of our union programs as well, folks are not persisting. They're dropping off before the end of the program, going after that quick job with a little bit more money, not thinking about the benefit that union work is going to continue for the rest of their life and really be an opportunity to grow, because they're not looking at the entire picture. They're again seeking that immediate kind of self gratification in a certain sense. So we're helping them to try and budget set and wanting to help them persist, because we know that's going to be a way to be successful. Great.
So, one thing though that certainly is problematic, and I know this has nothing, this is not your doing whatsoever, Bill. I'm excited to have you in this role, but I think the system is really limited in that, there are these very large regions. Our region is Kitsap, Clallam, and Jefferson counties, and there's not that many members on your board. And so, like, as an example, let's say we have 2 or 3 businesses in Clallam County that are on your board, and we have one, and I think there's only one school district representative on your board from the 3 counties, as I recall. And, we've got 2 colleges that serve on the board, but there's just no way for the representatives of the board to be able to truly know what is in demand, what is happening throughout the industries in their respective counties. That, it's, so say you've got 3 entities that serve on your board from, I think it's McKinley, Jamestown, and I can't remember another one, but it, you know, they can't speak on behalf of even, and I think maybe there was one on Maritime and, oh, and also Perry, anyway, Hartnagel's, they just can't speak on behalf of their entire industry, let alone industries that they're not a part of. So it's, you know, it's a flawed system that the federal government created, I think, to be able to assess and fully support the needs of the counties. But I know you're doing as darn much as you can, and in a kind of within a box that doesn't give you the resources that you need to really to understand what the best opportunities are for training and to provide those.
Well, Colleen, you know, I agree somewhat. We are a representative democracy as well. We don't have folks go direct to representative, right? So it's really important that we communicate with those representatives, all of you, to talk to those representatives who represent Clallam County, to be there and understand what that's about. So when I think of a business coming, we're not just about the business. You know, when we actually put the person on, it's not the business they're representing. It's actually that person. That person is a member. And so when they transfer from it to another business, we just recently had somebody move from Skookum Industries in Kitsap to the YMCA. That person stays on the board. They're bringing a different perspective now. We may need to look to a different industry to be able to pick that up. But really the idea is that they're supposed to be representing that entire industry, not just a person. But you're right, Colleen, unless they're out listening, unless they're being told by their other fellow businesses in the area, that's why they're important, and why we're members of various chambers throughout the region. We're always trying to get that data, not just from the board, but from elsewhere. So we are members of all the various chambers in the organizations and participate with those. Our staff in the WorkSource centers participate, most especially our business services teams. Part of the dollars that we're looking to boost in that workforce impact fund is really focused on those business connections, because I agree with you, they're not as good as they could be. But we need you all who are listening here to tell us as well, or tell your business members on our board what the needs are. So it's important to have that dialogue street, because they're just representatives, similar to the way we have government.
Mm-hmm. You know, and since we got a little bit of time here, I wanted to talk about apprenticeships as well. I mean, apprenticeships, the formal apprenticeships are wonderful programs, but you need to have, and it's a hands-on program, and you need to be working under a journeyman, under a licensed journeyman, to be a licensed apprentice, which is, you know, there are apprentices that have not been formally endorsed or certified by the state board, that, you know, people call them apprentices, but they're not the formal apprentices. Mm-hmm. And to be endorsed is a pretty long process, I think, and certified by the state, which is, you know, I understand they're trying to keep the bar high, but it's also unfortunate, because the bar that high, then you don't have access in a lot of communities.
Yeah.
And to have a really good apprenticeship program, a formal apprenticeship, number one, you have to be working under a licensed journeyman. And then number two, you have to have enough of a demand to support that level of training for the apprenticeship program. And typically, I've been told from some folks at L&I that's a minimum of about 10 people or more. And so if we don't have 10 or more in that particular stage, then it doesn't make sense to create a program in a local area. And so now, and because it's a hands-on program, it really needs to be, you know, you can't do everything online unless people start using virtual reality, and maybe that's an option, like Interplay. Mm-hmm. That's been certified in other states for HVAC programs. And I'm wondering if that will come around, so that access will be opened up to people in more rural areas. But the one piece that I'm really concerned about is with electricians between Clallam and Jefferson County. We, according to LNI, and we worked on this last year with LNI and the IBEW, there are 198 O1 trainees that are trying to become commercial electricians between Clallam and Jefferson counties. Only 10 of those are in formal apprenticeship programs. The rest are in these non-formal, working in your company, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And on July 1st of next year, if those people haven't graduated, which the majority of them will not have, received their journeyman license and enough hours by that time, they no longer will be able to pursue that. And what we're hearing from many electrical contractors, especially Jefferson County, that has no union contractors, this is really going to harm those businesses. And there's not access for those apprentices that are informal, those trainees, because the closest apprenticeship program for them will be Puyallup through the Construction Industry Training Center.
Mhm.
Whereas if they were union, there's a program in Sequim.
Mhm.
So, but they can't attend the Sequim program because they're non-union. So that's that's an access issue. That's a real problem. I know in Okanagan County, that's a big problem there. They're going to have to drive either 6 hours or 3 hours to the closest non-union apprenticeship location. And it's a problem for the businesses because they rely on, according to Frederickson Electric, about 35% of their work is in commercial. And so if they cannot have their apprentices come and learn there, they can't, they won't be able to take on those jobs in the future. And there's just not enough residential to support them. And typically commercial is paid a little bit higher. On the flip side, for people that, like, if I'm a restaurant owner and I need a light replaced, now in the future, I wouldn't be able to go to my local contractor because now I'm going to have to go to one that has gone through this formal apprenticeship program, and we don't have any up here.
Yeah.
So Commissioner Dean in Jefferson County has been really worried about this, and we've testified at different, and you have as well.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you've heard any progress in this space.
No, and unfortunately I haven't. I've been a big, as you know, Colleen, we've talked just privately, a big proponent of various forms of apprenticeship. In Colorado, we really focused on youth apprenticeship programs where folks started as juniors and seniors. And these were for jobs that were not just traditionally to the trade, but using apprenticeship throughout their learning experience. So for folks like workers' comp analysts, we were able to provide those for the workers' comp insurance programs or other things that can be apprenticized, but they need to have a formalized process. And you're right, it's not easy to go through that. But on the trade side, it is very difficult to be able to have a couple of programs running. And we've got to figure out something as a state to be able to do that. One of the things that I was again advocating for just recently was this virtual learning opportunities that you just spoke about, not only the computerized ones, but what about just having your classroom time done virtually? And then we do hands-on training with the business. We get the business folks to have certified somebody there who can teach people how to practice what they just learned online. So there's a variety of ways. I think we need to think outside the box for apprenticeship because we're not getting anywhere with a very limited sphere. And we know that the capacity of our labor folks is also at max. They just do not have the room to take on these programs as well. So we need to have better access for rural folks into these opportunities, duplicate it, and look at technology as a way. I mean, you talked about folks, coming, you're not a bedroom community for Seattle, but in reality, you have a lot of folks now living and working virtually for places in Seattle that are now living in Clallam County. And so, that's changing our whole dynamic as well, that people no longer live where they work. And so if you're lucky enough to be able to live in Clallam and can get a six-figure job somewhere else virtually, you're going to take advantage of that, right? But what again are we adding to the local community by that? So
No, what we're finding is that's the number of purchases of homes in our county has gone from, on average 25% were investment owned properties, and now it's up to 41%. And so it's really, and only about 6% are remote workers, but that is a lot more than it had been. But that's really driving the price of housing up, which then requires that, today, based on our analysis, it's close to $65,000, $70,000 that you need to make in order to be able to afford a home and, put some money away for a future need, whatever that may be. So, it's really, it's kind of a two-edged sword. And those remote workers aren't hiring people is the other thing. And what we're really focused on is our working population in Clallam County. What can we do to help them and improve their lives? So with that, I see it's 9:03, and I sure appreciate you coming on. And I hope maybe in a few months or so, we can have you on again and talk about maybe some specific programs that you may want to share with everyone.
awesome. Well, thank you so much, Colleen, for the opportunity. Great to virtually meet everyone. Again, my email's down at the bottom. I would love to talk with you. I think Lori or somebody will be sending the presentation out to folks. I've had a couple of people ask for that. So thank you again, and have a wonderful day all.
Great. Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Bill. Take care.